I wanted to take a minute today and talk about something that it seems like nobody teaches, and that's integration. I hear it a lot, like take time to integrate. And you can look up the textbook definition, but that doesn't mean that the concept is really being digested and put into the system. So the mind is kind of floating around with this word of I need to integrate, but it's not really sticking. And that's where I see a lot of people getting stuck. So they're doing all of the things, right? They're reading the books, they're going to the classes, they're watching the webinars, they're going to yoga and to therapy and all of the things. And they end up just getting burnt out at the end of the day, but not actually making forward progress. They're jumping from modality to modality. So meditation to breath work to yoga to mindfulness in general to therapy to different versions of therapy. They're getting little insights very frequently like, oh, this does make sense that I should change this, or oh, maybe if I did something a little different, but the changes aren't really lasting. And so what integration truly is, without a definition, is when your nervous system, when your body is catching up to what the mind knows. So think of it like driving a car. When you first start driving a car, you're paying attention to each thing specifically. You're having a really hard time. You're like, oh, I know I need to keep my hands at 10 and 2. I know I need to be watching the road and watching the mirrors. And then I know I need to turn my signal on and turn around. And I'm watching my speedometer very carefully. And you're really focused on each individual aspect. So that's the learning process of it. Once you've integrated how to drive, the body does it automatically. You're having a conversation, you can listen to music or an audio book, you're, looking at the sights while still keeping an eye on the road because your body knows what to do. So it becomes second nature, and the body feels safe in that version of integration. And we integrate on multiple levels, whether it's with bad habits or unsafe coping mechanisms. Maybe like you get stressed and so you go get some wine. Those are integrations that we're taking on in order to survive. But in order to integrate healing, the pattern has to be practiced enough that it becomes second nature without us really thinking about it. In essence, our mind is catching up to what it knows with our body. So our mind knows something, our body grasps the concept, but then they're working together cohesively so that there's not anything that needs to be caught. It doesn't need to be practiced anymore because it's habit. We've created those neural pathways, and so now we just do it as second nature. Now, most of the time, what I notice is that this gets skipped primarily because of kind of today's culture. So there's a lot of fast-paced programs. Everybody says, oh, I can help you in as little as 3 weeks. You can take this course on communication and you'll be a master in a month. Or, you're certifying in these programs in just a couple weeks, and everything is so fast paced. You're not really getting time to practice it. That was one of the things I loved about massage school is it was a year-long program. And while, let's say, like studying the anatomy and the physiology, yeah, that took time. But there was also the time of learning the body in my body, learning how to interact with another body and another nervous system and the touch. It's more than just memorization. But today, everybody wants something so fast. If you don't have a good hook on a video, on a short form video, in the first 10 seconds, somebody scrolled past, maybe even less than that, if you don't have a good hook. Your content, your message could be amazing, but our minds are being trained for those quick bites of information. And the learning process, the keeping it with you process, is being thrown out the window because it's not fast. And with that, we're also wanting constant activations, right? We're wanting things that are exciting. So the idea of meditation, which can be slow if you're doing like a traditional sitting still meditation, is boring. You want a guided meditation where the visualizations change your location and your sensations, and it's really drawing all of your attention, but not staying in one place for too long, because then the mind gets bored. And we want something that's activating, something that's pulling up a lot of energy or a lot of emotion without actually holding on to anything and digesting it. We're looking for breakthroughs constantly, right? So to learn a lesson, we go, aha, now what? What's next? Rather than that, aha, let me put it into practice for a month, 2 months, a year. I mean, be honest, when I said, put this into practice for a year, what do you think? Like, oh, that's a long time. Well, you're going to be living, hopefully, a long time. So yeah, you're going to need to practice it for a long time. And sometimes those steps, those even foundational practices, we go, oh, got it, moving on. And then we dump the foundational stuff, not realizing that it still needs to be utilized alongside all of the other processes. So we're just like, what's next? What's next? What's next? What's the next breakthrough? What's the big emotion? What's the next purge? What's the next trend? And then we bypass the rest of it. We look for what's, for lack of a better word, like sexy, what's juicy, like shadow work. Like that sounds juicy. You know, I'm gonna ugly cry in my bedroom with my journal, and I'm gonna rage and shout, and then I'm gonna feel better. But that's a part of it. Those emotions do need to be moved, but the rest of it, the stuff that's just kind of like boring to our mind, although very important, gets pushed to the wayside. We go into like positivity bypassing, where, oh, good vibes only. That's not the way it works. And then productivity. This culture of constant productivity is destroying us. The idea that we can't rest. You finish a book, you check out the next book. You finish a podcast, you start the next podcast, or you go onto a documentary, or like whatever it is, it's one after the other, without the time to truly process it, without the time to let it live in your body. The fascia, I've got another video on healing integration and how our connective tissue in our body holds on to so much. And part of it is our practices. Our physical body won't let us start new practices because we've programmed it for one thing. Over time, we've programmed it for something that we don't even like over time because we've practiced that. And then we expect to change overnight. When our body doesn't comply overnight, we dump it. We say we're broken. We say that, this just isn't the right practice, on to the next modality because we're looking for something big. But sometimes healing is quiet. Sometimes it's paced. One step, fully chewing your food, so to speak, before you swallow and take the next bite. We have cycles in healing where we experience a trigger, okay? We can find insight from that trigger. We learn a lesson, we integrate and we practice, and then that trigger comes up again theoretically, and we have a different response. We go through areas or times in our life where things are really easy. They feel really easy. I think Tony Robbins calls it like the spring of life, where things are just blooming and growing and everything feels wonderful. But then summer comes and it's really hot and we have to work at it. And that can be a struggle. But if we get through that, then we get to fall where we're harvesting, which is wonderful. But then there's winter, which is a struggle. We are always in cycles. It's not always growth. We have to have some downtime to rest, to digest, to learn. And if we're not doing that, if we're constantly just pushing ourselves, then we're going to burn out and we're not going to feel safe. It's either going to be physically, emotionally, our nervous system, financially. If we're constantly putting ourselves under stress without practicing what we're learning, then we're not going to get very far because we're going to get stuck in these places. So when you're integrating, what does that actually look like? When you've taken a practice and you've put it in your body, these are the moments you know you're integrating when you notice a reaction before you explode. When you can start to say, ooh, like somebody says something to you and you go, ooh, I feel my breath get more shallow. I feel my chest tighten up. I feel my fists. I feel my jaw. I'm noticing what would normally just be a split second and you're like yelling at somebody in response or crying or whatever your normal response is to a situation, where there's that tiny, even if it's like a half a second, just that tiny noticing before what you would normally do. That is true integration. That is saying to your body, to your system, I'm in control here and we're doing something different. Integration might be choosing to rest instead of pushing through the burnout. When you're saying, I just finished an 8-hour day of work and I'm exhausted. And maybe on the way home, you had to have a hard conversation with a family member, so you didn't get that time to decompress, to be able to come home and instead of saying like, I'm going to drink a cup of coffee and then I'm going to get on my homework, to say like, I'm going to take a 10-minute nap. To be able to lovingly just naturally set boundaries. I think when we're first learning about boundaries, we often kind of have this wall, this barrier, right? So we say like, you need to set a boundary. I'm for real. I'm serious right now. And some people we do need to be that stern with. But we can also just say like, no thanks. And they can have their response and it doesn't affect us because we know our boundary. We are secure in our boundary. I don't want to do that. I'm not up for that. I don't have that for you. Whatever the case might be. And we don't have to make this huge ordeal, this show, this like intervention sign out of our boundary, because it will just naturally exist for us when we've done that work and started living it. When we're changing our breath patterns when we're triggered. So oftentimes when we get triggered and we go into a fight, flight, or freeze response, the breathing shallows. So rather than saying, I'm going to try to calm down and take a big breath, to activate the body and just say, oh, I know I need breath. I know I need oxygen. My brain can't function as well without oxygen. And right now my breathing is tight because my responses have kicked in. So I'm going to consciously choose to. What shifts? And you can notice what shifts when you take a big breath. When you move differently. So when you're walking in a tired, if you're feeling depressed or shut down. It's a way I like to refer to that as. If you can change your wording a little bit, instead of I'm feeling anxious to I'm feeling activated, because activation can also be excitement. It's the same physiological response in our body. It's just what we have attached to it. So if you're feeling activated or if you're feeling shut down, often when we feel shut down, we're hunched over and we're kind of moseying and we don't feel like we can carry ourselves. So if you can consciously be like, oh, I'm letting myself fall in again. Let's give myself some energy, pull myself up. Even in this moment, if my brain is not with me on it, I can choose how to move my body and how my body responds. I can choose to move with ease. Maybe things were feeling a little stiff, and so I'm going to loosen up my body, choosing to move differently and flow through different ranges of motion. Maybe instead of sitting all day, you do get up and take a walk more often. And then you can speak differently too, and not just to others, but to yourself. Like I see a lot of parents, and I've been in this position where the kids are being kids. They're being who they are in their beautiful little developmental stages, and we are dysregulated. Our nervous systems are fried because maybe we're not getting enough food. Maybe we're not getting enough sleep. And when we need to yawn. So a kiddo is running around and playing and being loud, and then they spill something. In that moment, our reaction from a dysregulated state might be to freak out, to get mad that something got spilled, panic that something's broken, annoyance that you have to clean. There's so many negatives that you can go with it. And then the child takes on that response of, oh, I'm bad. I made my parent, my caretaker, mad or upset. And so I am bad, and they take that on. But when we can shift the way we speak about the situation to, oh, what did we learn? Is running in the house a good idea? Where can we run? And then the same goes for us when we make a mistake. So often I see parents, and they're trying so hard to give their kids better, to teach them better, but they're not embodying it. So they're teaching their kids like, oh, you should be confident, you should love yourself, you should eat healthy, you should X, Y, and Z. I believe in you. But then the parents are telling themselves like, I don't have time to rest. I am not worth the clothes. I made a mistake and I suck. Whether or not they're saying the words externally, the nervous system is still co-regulating with kids, and the kids are picking up on that negative self-talk that the parent is giving themselves. So you can speak to yourself with more kindness, and again, not bypassing. I've had many situations where I've done something just completely ridiculous because I wasn't paying attention. And so I own that. And he's like, man, wasn't paying attention. That was silly of me. Here's the mistake that I have now. How can I handle this? And my kids learn that mistakes happen. Nobody is infallible. Everybody is going to make mistakes. That's part of life. It's part of learning. And when we can use that as a learning opportunity, rather as a mistake that we're upset with ourselves over, that's when we're really doing the work. And when it starts being authentic, that's when we've integrated it into our body so that we don't even have to think, how should I talk to myself right now? And instead, it's just this is how I talk to myself. This is how I deserve to be talked to. And honestly, this coming home to the body, this living the work, not just learning it, not just reading the books, not just, whatever form you're taking it in, and then getting on to the next one in hopes that there's this big breakthrough moment. This is exactly why I made Ground and Align my 5-week course, and I've got a deeper course coming out. But It's so that you can learn to live these little practices that if you stack them, like if we had these practices and were encouraged to really use them and our parents were using them when we were little, I can pretty much guarantee that the world would not be the place that it is today. But here we are. So finding just little things that you can do to say, what is this thing that I've noticed, this pattern, this belief, this way that I hold myself? And then shift one tiny aspect, because we don't want to overwhelm ourselves. We're setting ourselves up for failure if we do that. So if we can take one aspect and make that shift and practice it consistently, build trust and safety with ourselves, build a relationship with ourselves, that's when the integration happens, and that's when things start to really shift. So if you've been doing all of the things and you're still feeling just stuck, I guarantee that you're not broken. You're not. You are no different than anybody else. You have different personality traits, you've had different experiences, but you have every capability. So whatever you've experienced, that's in the past. If you're not feeling the shifts that you feel like you want to right now, that you feel like you can, it's simply because you're not living it in your body every day. And if you want support with that, I will give you more resources. But I know that you've got this. And I'm so excited for you. One thing, one word, one phrase, not an affirmation, because your body doesn't believe that yet. That's your mind trying to convince yourself. And I mean, I guess there is the concept of like, if you say a lie loud enough, long enough, and with enough conviction, eventually you're going to believe it. You got to get to the root of that and then live it every day, over and over, with authenticity and grace and love for yourself. And in that integration, in going to one meditation or breathing class, and maybe you have a really big breakthrough in that, and then you sit with that for longer than you think. You go, oh, there's a breathwork class every week, so I'm going to go every week. I'm going to challenge you to go, get the experience, and then see what happens if you go 2 weeks just focusing on that one experience, just listening to what you learned. And more than listening, living it in your body. That's when profound shifts happen.